Good morning. Today we are going to discuss about art to bring you to the world of art, to suggest you'll be able to communicate with the forms of art in addition to science, humanities, and many others in this class. This is the June 1st that we would like to discuss about art. When you visit Europe and other countries, anywhere in America, so whenever you visit the Catholic Church cathedral, which is Catholic church, when you first come into this place of cathedral, what would you do for the first time? What would you do? Do you remember when you visit the cathedral in one of the European countries and any other countries, even in Korea? So when you visit and enter into the cathedral, what would be your first reaction? What do you do for the first time? So I'm not sure, but as I remember, we look up, right? Look up to look at the vault of the cathedral, the ceiling and the roof of the church. Why? Or which make us to look up, to look at the vault? That's the architecture. So a long time ago, architect designed this cathedral to make people consciously, but most likely unconsciously, to respect the presence of God. So they believe in. So even though we are not the Christian and Catholic, the persons, even if I'm Buddhist and Islamics, the persons. So whenever you visit these types of cathedral, we look up. That's the kind of the power of art. So with the beauty. So architect design of this the church with the height as high as possible to make people to look up and to respect the presence of a certain power. From sometimes magic and sometimes respect the feelings and many different things. So come around with this architecture. So when you visit the library the other way, or when you visit the museum, so that do you think you are easy to scream and talk loudly with your colleagues, with your friend, with your family when you visit the museum and the library? No, so that could be, you may say there could be customs, but from the feeling, from the culture, from the some kind of mood out of those structure of the building. So we may react to the surrounding we are faced with. So then we keep the silence to look up, look at the artworks, to read the books, to be careful not to bother other persons in terms of appreciations, in terms of study. So that's the power of art, centering around architecture, centering around artistic aesthetics. And then my question is that, so how we bring those mood, bring those of a science of feeling, science of sensibilities, because we are always consciously and unconsciously the feeling what surround us. Okay, so then I'd like to bring those issues into science and humanity. where we communicate each other to exchange informations with especially forms of creative arts, creative beauty. The beautiful can affect us in terms of many different ways. So that's why we would like to bring art issue into this class under science humanities. So we are dealing with a human being to contribute to other persons to form new order for our society in the future. Then I'd like to bring this issue. So what is art? What does it matter to us? So there are many different questions regarding art. So as a students of UNIST, students of scientists, as scientists, engineer, and even business persons, business study at the students. So art can do something, I believe, in this week. That's why we would like to discuss about art. So imagine, so after this class, probably lunchtime, if you have time, and walk around your home, your school, inside the campus, and around your apartment, around your house, to look at the flower, including weeds. Sometimes you can find the rose around you. Hydrangeas, right now in June especially. Or dandelions, the weeds, types of a flower you can look at, you can watch, you can see based on. So observing those flowers for a couple of seconds, couple of minutes, and then feel it to make a certain picture in your brain, and then bring those pictures in your work of home, term project. Prepare yourself with your the final examination, for example. How you actually transform what you observe with the flower and the cloud and the surrounding object, including rock even, into certain picture to be delivered to other persons through communications. So art, we are now in this class, under this the science of humanity class, only interested in transformation with the forms of artwork. Of course, we are interested in art, but under this class, with this topic, we are interested in only forms of artwork to be communicated with other persons. So we've been discussing about communication in a society. So the society can be interpreted as a system. System consists of communication. To do communication for you, to communication we need what? Then you would like to communicate with your family, your friend, your colleagues, your faculty around you. Then you have to have information. Other than information, we cannot do any communication. When you go to museum with art to appreciate those artworks, and we see the work, artist work, the painters and sculptures, other forms, of course. Do you think those are communication? If you look at the painting of a Picasso, when you visit the museum in Madrid in Spain, when you look at the Picasso work, Do you think that's communication? So because we are interested in communication with art, right? So this is not art class. This is a class of art intentionally to be connected to communications, because we are dealing with the communications to reform or newly form our societal system. The communication is everything to us with art, and we need communications. Please come back to Madrid Museum to see the Picasso's so one very the masterpiece of work. So you touched by Picasso painting. You touched by his message. I'm not sure what that is. But do you think, my question is that, do you think you communicate with Picasso's painting? What do you think? What do you think? So that's I believe that's very important. To communicate through art, we need something. That's the information. So you get, if you get any information from Picasso in Madrid, Spain, you communicate. You accept something. So a long time ago, when Picasso painted the Korea disaster, so he interested in Korea, our country, in terms of disaster. So then he would like to say or tell message behind those the disaster to other persons through his painting, through his artwork. To communicate. But so you identify the beauty of the Picasso's painting in Madrid. So we cannot for sure say or confirm you are communicating with Picasso. So it's the matter of the information. Information is very important. So you paint sometime. You paint or artist work with your term project, for example. Or you can draw instead of writing some sentences using a language of English, language of Korean. And then with your painting on the wall, on the paper, then do you think if you confirm those paintings have information to be delivered to other persons, that's the communication. But when people look at your painting, the people cannot recognize any information. So even if you would like to communicate to other persons, those actions from yourself through the artist painting is not communication at all. Please look at this cathedral, Catholic Church. Please look at on the screen. Do you have any message from this architect? Any message, any information from him? What kind of information do you have from this one? Then whenever you visit the Buddhist temple and cathedral church, the Christian church, of course, and Islamic mosque, right? Mosque, okay. So and then you get information. Then you can communicate if you have information. Certainly, architecture, Islamic artists, churches, Christian artists, Buddhist artists, they all would like to tell you certain messages in terms of information. But for the society, we have those information to be combined to draw picture of a system with a meaningful with the meaningful interpretations and selections and subsequently. The most obvious and distinct way to communicate with the other person is absolutely what we can do with the language. That's we believe totally exclusively with the language we can communicate to other persons. Right now, I talk, you listen. Sometimes you talk and you write the message through chatting window. Then we can communicate with language in either English and Korean, right? But except with the language, If I ask you not to use any language, either English and Korean and your country languages, how we actually communicate? So we need the other languages, not Korean and English. But sometimes we can use a gesture, right? The gesture, body languages. We can make a face from our face, right? And then you keep the silence sometime as a signal. So we discussed about the sign a couple of weeks ago to show to deliver our message, deliver our information to other persons. It's up to receiver of those informations to complete communications. So in this society where we live, there are many different types of information we have. So a typical example, the first one we already mentioned, and sign of language, alphabetic language, words and sentences. But other languages as well, that music, for example, right? Music and painting, architecture, signal, sign, figure, gesture, face, wink. So a lot of things we have. So those are combined or employing everything under logic of science. Sometimes we discussed last week, and also we can do art to communicate with other persons. We are not artists, right? But we can be artists to communicate differently. Sometimes the language, so you talk to your colleagues, with your friend, to discuss about something, issues right now, about the gender issue, discriminations, wealth, capitalisms, and your future, climate change and pandemic situations. We use every time language to make information to deliver to other person, and the other person understand your information, and to make sometimes a concept we discuss on the topic of science. That's the way we make our system, subsequently society, subsequently our future. But with art this week, we can make alternative forms of concept to make information, to deliver other persons. What's the purpose? What's the purpose of art? So that's the question of today. Okay, so art should be based on our sense. Without sense, do you think we can do art? Do you think? No, I don't think so. Without sense, Without sensibility, we cannot do any art. Through art, to be able to communication, even if that is communications, we have to use and we have to employ, occupy with those the process with our sense. Sense connected to science, do you think? Of course, because we have to observe. So please remind yourself what we discussed last week with the topic of science. Science based on observations. Observations can be achieved through our senses, but different way with art. But art, anyway, should be grounded on sense. After this class, as I recommend you, advise you to look at flower, to look up and to look at the cloud formed, right? The form on the sky with the buffer of water affected by surrounding conditions. So we have a cloud. Cloud looks like sometimes your mother, happy memories, your friend, long time ago in elementary school. So give us a lot of the feeling. So that could be art. So then you draw after your image, the form based on your observations by your sense. Then you can make artwork. But keep in mind art and art as communication. It's a different. So art is more than enough sometimes, but to communicate other than language. So we need something through discussion, through knowing process to be done in the name of artwork as communications. Okay, the sense is that much important. So please look at this, the cartoon. Okay, so we discussed about this one already. René Magritte. What is the topic, the title of this work from René? This is in a pipe. Please look at this one. So a lot of actually spectator, the people surrounding this artistic work to take a picture. But one of those is the thinking. Everyone, they look at based on their eyesight. They use their sight as a sense to observe the work provided by René Magritte. But only one person think to figure out what those are. What they mean by something differently from other work. Because the figure looks like a pipe, but title is the tail. The pipe is not. It is not pipe. So instead of taking picture, when you visit the museum gallery, of course, based on your senses, then look at to bring those into information, bring those and transform those work you observe at the gallery into information to be delivered to other persons. So that's the purpose. That's the aim. And purpose from the painter, I believe. Okay, participation 1. Please define art. At the topic of the June 1st art, name of art on the app, the Street Smart. Please try to define. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for your definitions. I like it. Okay, I like it. I like very much. Art. So art. So please look at this sentence. Art transformed immediate to the mediate by retarding our perception. Retarding our perception. So I emphasize importance and the significance of our senses with art. To do art, we need a sense. To do art, we need a sense. But sense produce perceptions. We've been using so many times in our everyday lives perception. In Korean, 인식. 나는 인식한다. We perceive so many times. Observe other persons use this word for a single day. How many times do we use perception? 인식. Okay. What is the insight? What is the perception? What is perception? When you look at, after this class, as I suggest to you, the flower and a cloud and water, the lake water, Gamangmot, inside the campus of UNIST. So you can draw the picture. You can draw a picture when you look at the flower, cloud, the lake, and other object. You can draw a picture from perception. So think of this one a little more. So we perceive, of course we can perceive by scanning a lot of different things surrounding us. We scan everything surrounding us using our sense, and then we can draw some picture. Probably not. The picturing stop is image stop. Image is something beyond the perception. When you perceive, is not yet arrive at the forms of an image. To draw image after observing flower, cloud, and many others surrounding us, we need intuition. We need intuitions. So perception followed by intuitions, we can make a draw. We can make an image. So intuition is defined as imagine the perception. So with the image, so perception, you can draw some picture out of an object you observe, such as a flower, cloud, after perception. So of course, this is my thought, my idea to interpret. But you may have your own definitions. Please understand, you perceive and you intuit. 직관. You perceive, 인식, and you intuit and draw. But when you imagine, when you interpret the process based on your sense, you can define differently from mine with the perception and intuition as well. My understanding of these terminologies from my reading of different books, okay? But those are not necessary to be accepted by yourself. You may have your own definitions with the perception and intuitions. But generally speaking, from my understanding, from my reading, the couple of aesthetic and art books, even philosophical book, what do you think? You perceive, okay? You use sense. You perceive, you use sense with the flower, cloud, and the lake and nature stuff. And then you use in your intuition, draw picture. After picture, what could be shown up to your brain, to your heart? Okay, we defined those one as four. So let me repeat this one. You sense, we sense, I sense the flower. Sense is more than enough sometimes. Okay. Whenever I sense, I can draw a picture. No, that's not I understand with my sense and the perception. After perception, I use my intuition, so draw some picture. Okay, draw some picture with the help of the previous experience, previous event. I draw some picture through my intuitions, and after that, I make a certain form. The picture and the form is very different. How different? The picture is a picture, but picture can be transformed into a form. The form could be informations. Please look at the word and the terminology of information. Inside information, we have a form, right? Inside word of information, we have a form. The form, your form. When you start the sense, you are sensing through picture, imagine the picture, you make a form. You transform this form into information. Finally can be transferred to other persons. Then we define the process as communication. Other person accept sometime, but the other time they reject. So that we define the communication in Korean 소통. So reject, 통 accept. You know what I'm saying? So you observe dandelion after this class, and during lunch time. You sense it. And after that, you forgot everything. No, that's fine. You are still artist, I believe. But after observing with your sense, through your sense, the flower, dandelion, and you can draw a picture in your brain. Then you can end. That's fine. You're still artist, right? You start artist. And if you bring or transform those picture in your brain, in your mind, into certain form, okay? The picture and the form, please think of the distinct difference between two. And make information. So take a picture, and as a form and Instagram, then you upload those things as a picture or as information. Do you know what I'm saying? So those are very different. So this is artistic communication. Take a picture and you draw some picture after you are transforming into a form. The form accumulate in this society. Other persons accept your form as information. There could be data. The data accumulated to come into big data. So that's the logic of our communication in a society. Based on our platform as code we discussed 3 weeks ago, right? So art can contribute our communication in a forms of created form. So you created your form as a sign as a sign to contain a specific meaning in it and upload in a platform to transport other person as information to do communication. So data out of those communication accumulated to generate the value of this one. Then we can change. Then we can switch our society. So artists, please think about in different way after this class, if you agree. Even if you look at tree, look at the person, look at the butterfly, cat, dogs, and if you would like to be interested in this artist work as communications, you are probably willing to transform those objects you observe into artistic form, right? Artistic form to be information, to be involved in communication in a society. So you have a platform to generate data to contribute to our society. And then, then even from science, from last week class, even with artistic work, this week class. So you do communicate, you do communication. So when you visit the Gijang and Gori, the village, sometime, so you look at nuclear power plant, and or you can watch, you can observe a solar panel to generate electricity. The both nuclear power and solar power generate electricity in terms of energy, in terms with respect to industry of those one. But as a artist, we may be artists, right? Depending on situations. So you draw in your mind. You first time we have to sense, right? We have to sense. We have to perceive based on our sense, and we draw in our brain some picture, and then we transform those picture and perceptive word into a form, and then we make informations to be delivered to other persons, like this cartoon, right? That's the what artistic work by the public, by the normal person, rather than artistic solely. So then we trespass ourselves from perception, consciousness, and cognitions. Where is art? In the perception. So we already mentioned we perceive based on our senses, but that's not total artistic the process we can do. After perception, we can draw a picture based on our consciousness. The consciousness can be defined as mentally we are awake, right? We are awake, not sleeping at all, to do something. And cognitions, as opposed to perception and consciousness, what could be defined in a different way with this the terminology of cognitions. Cognition is action of knowing. So nothing to do with any sense, probably. Of course, you may define differently, but to me, to my knowledge, to my understanding, cognition is nothing to do with sense. Sense is basically give importance to perception process. After perception process, we awake, not sleeping, and wake to get something in the forms of a picture. And after that, we transform those one into a form to be information, to be delivered, to be significant. Okay, so art is everything. Art show up by combining those three steps to hand over information in it. Okay, so please look at the definitions done by Nicholas Luhmann. We couple of times mentioned him as a sociologist, but at this time, different book. The book title, Art as a Social System, 2000, he defined work of art in this way. Work of art, he said, employ perception. So he started his definition from perception based on sense. The work of art employ perceptions exclusively for the purpose of letting observer participate in communication of invented form. You understand right now? We start from perception, and then we have a picture, then transform those pictures into what? Form. Okay, form is very important. In science, form is maybe equivalent to concept. So from scientific experiment, you have a certain form as concept to be transformed into knowledge and to be published. The publication with a scientific result from your experiment could be communication, right? Communications. Publication is one format of communication. That's the science. But science start from observation. Sometimes through our senses, sometimes from a fancy instrument, scientific fancy apparatus, instrument. But art, okay, art, that's the science. But art, we use our sense. Without sense, I don't think we can perceive. Subsequently, we can transform into a form, specially invented form to communicate. So artwork contribute our communications to consisting of our society in this way, based on definitions done by Nicholas Luhmann as a sociologist in his book of Art as a Social System. So the form is that much important. In art form, communication occurs. And what kind of form is needed to make our communication under the name of art to occur? The first time, art form should be conspicuous. So you are wearing of glasses in color yellow, for example, color red, color of purple, instead of a black, gray. If you wear those glasses, like a Gang Ho-dong, like other artistic, the famous person, artist. So people actually recognize him to be artist because their glasses is distinctive, conspicuous. So you you wear very distinctive clothes, fashionable clothes. So that's the could be form, art form, right? To be able to have meaningful messages to be delivered to other persons. If you wear yellow ribbon in April, for example, if you ever wear yellow ribbon on your chest close to your heart in April, so you have a message, right? To deliver those one to other persons. So that's the art form communication occur. If you wear hat, distinctive hat with a certain specific shape, which might have the form of employing messages to be delivered to other persons. So you would like to use your hat as a sign of a form to communicate with those, based on those, with the other persons. So communication is like that. You deliver information, so your colleagues accept or reject it. And secondly, those art forms should be fascinating and give other persons to select it. So the other person to select. If you wear yellow ribbon in April, especially 16th, and then other person says may neglect or accept it, and to be touched by your message from your yellow ribbon, right? Those are informations with the communication you would like to. But art based on what? Sense, especially with the beauty, based on your sense, you have to start with what? Perception. You start perception is not itself a communication, but the communication in the forms of art should start from perceptions. Other than that, there could be a science, philosophy, and other associated communications. But with art, so we have to start from perception based on our sense. That's the most important things. As an architect, we already look at the cathedral in European countries and Spain, Madrid. Why they build so high cathedral to make those vault ceiling so high, to make people sense, based on form to be delivered in their architecture type of communications designed by the artist as an architect long time ago when building those cathedral to deliver information, right? To deliver information as a message, okay? Message of respect, the message of Maria, message of Jesus. When you go to the Buddhist temple, so architecture try to design those to the building not through high ceiling, but a different way with the column, with the color, with the different the forms, the from combinations, many different dot, line, the plane, color, and shape and plane, and many different things to make and design those Buddhist temples to deliver their artistic form as information to communicate through those architecture of a temple. Those are things. Okay, the second participation is to give an example of art in your mind right now as a communication. Which example do you think could be possible communication with the forms of art. Please. Okay, this week art. So we start our art as a communication from perception based on our sense. We need a sign to make information, to make a form, to come up with communications. That's the message I'd like to deliver. Okay, different from science, different from other area. So art can contribute to our society through communication, through information, starting from perception based on our sense. That's the message from today's class. So we extend this discussion on Thursday with the topic of art, but different examples. So I would like to show you Kandinsky stuff. So do you know the Kandinsky? So surreal abstract painter, originally from Russia, but he mostly work in German and French as well. So through works of art done by Kandinsky, so we would like to understand, I'd like you understand what art as a communication is from his work. Okay, so this is it today. Thank you for your attention and see you Thursday with a different topic, not different, the same topic of art, but different example, including Kandinsky stuff. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay, good day. If you have any questions, please do. If you have any questions, please do. Thank you.